Hello, hello, hello there. It's Patricia Hayes here with today's Coffee Time Career Chat. So glad to be here. It is the Authentic Networking Edition today. So I'm super excited to be going through this with you today, in particular because it is conference season. I mean, the spring is the time when the conferences really start gearing up. And even though things are looking different these days and we're doing things, so many more things virtually, the idea is that you still have to be prepared. So this month, we are really going to focus in on maximizing your networking opportunities and looking at the different venues and ways in which you can do it, whether it's attending conferences and workshops, whether it's attending your quarterly meetings and retreats, to whatever happy hours are being hosted. There's just a ton of things that are going on and that will be going on as things really start to gear up and as we start to open up a little bit more to allow us to engage a little bit more, both in person and virtually. So we are going to start off with the conversation about attendance at conferences and workshops today. So, like I said, it is conference and workshop season, and you really want to make sure that you maximize your networking opportunities. And when you're doing this, one of the first things that you really have to do is not just jump straight into, oh my gosh, this workshop is coming up, let me go sign up for it, because that is generally our response, right? I want you to take a breather, step back, and I want you to think about this in terms of everything you're doing for the year. When you think about it in those terms, that gives you a little bit different prioritization, perhaps, a different perspective. So I want you to take the time to identify the conferences and the workshops that you are interested in attending for the remainder of this year, okay? When you do that, that may change which ones you consider to be a priority versus ones that you do not. And even if you're not sure whether you're going to attend for real or not, I think you should put it on your calendar. Save a place for it so that as you start to schedule things out 3 months, 6 months, 9 months down the road, you can also see the other things that you are considering. And as you start making more active decisions about what you will or will not do, you can do it in context of the things that you were considering 6 months ago, when perhaps right then and there, it may not pop up otherwise, okay? The other way to make sure that you stay on top of it is to review your options quarterly. You can do this either through your calendar electronically, or if you're like me and still keep a paper calendar as well, where you line out some of the different opportunities that you're considering for the year and when they fall. For me, I'm very visual when it comes to stuff like that. And so I like to be able to actually see it in front of me and to see it in the context of other things that I'm considering. So it doesn't matter which way, it just matters that you are actually tracking it, that you put it on your calendar, and that you're reviewing quarterly what it is you're going to do. The other thing is you want to make sure that you're ready to pivot from virtual to in person at any given time. These have been unusual times in which we've been operating. And although we all pretty much agree from a market standpoint that virtual work is here to stay, there are going to be those opportunities and those workshops, those seminars, those retreats where the host will transfer to a in-person format. So you want to be prepared for that and to consider whether it's something that you personally are going to be willing to attend in person. Because when you attend in person, one of the things that's been an upside for virtual and a downside for in person is the upside is you don't have all those trailing costs, hotel, travel, lost travel time, all of that stuff. You don't have virtually. You still have time constraints, but it's different. when you have to look at whether or not you're going to be attending things in person, then that adds back to the travel costs, the time away from your family, a time away from your business, time away from your other office duties, and spending it in person to attend said conference, workshop, retreat. Now, those are pluses and minuses either way. I know that sometimes I love to physically get away because it allows me to concentrate better, and it means that I will really focus. So we don't really know what that's going to look like, but I want you to keep that in mind so that if you know that, hey, this may end up going in person, and so I may need to consider that if I'm actually going, that's probably going to affect your costs, right? So a $1,500 conference, because you could register for it online, may become $2,500 if you now have to add in hotel costs, a flight, food, all that kind of stuff. So give thought to that, consider it. I know that I have at least 2 workshops / retreats that are on my calendar for late fall that have indicated that if at all possible, they intend to host those events in person. So at some point, I will need to make a decision about whether I'm going to attend in person or if I'm going to pursue the virtual option that these 2 hosts are still going to be offering. All right. So it's a very real thing. It's not made up. It's things that people are actually considering right now. So that's your first step. You want to make sure you identify those conferences and workshops that you are interested in for the entire year. Okay. Secondly, you want to choose a conference and commit. So there are a few things that you may not be ready to commit to, right? It may be a little early for you to decide, I don't know if I'm going to really go to that conference in November. We still have some family vacation things that we may be trying to catch up on, whatever. So you just want to keep that one marked. However, maybe the summer retreat workshop and conference, I absolutely want to schedule time to attend this. And so I'm not just going to put it on my calendar, but I'm going to commit to it by actually paying for it in advance. For those of us and those of you who have budgets for professional development, this is why it's important to take a big picture view of what it is you're considering using for or what you're considering attending. Here's the reason why. If you know that you have a $5,000 professional development budget and that it's going to cost $2,500 to attend this one conference in person down in October, and you really have to go because it's an industry level conference, versus 2 other conferences or workshops that may be before then that may be $1,000 or $1,500. And you're like, okay, is it really worth it for me not, to miss this one in order to gain these 2? Or how do I want, really want to spend out all of my professional development on these 3 opportunities, okay? So this is the reason for identifying things in advance. Most things are laid out for this year. There will be a few things that pop up. Most of the time, those things that pop up during the course of the year are not normally the big ticket conferences. Most of the big ticket conferences are probably already scheduled. You know about them, or you can find out about them, and you just need to put it on your radar and then decide if there's 1 or 2 that you really want to commit to. Now, here are some factors to consider for committing. You definitely want to consider committing early to something that has a limited capacity. That is highly likely as we slowly open things up over the course of 2021 because of the pandemic. So this is a very real thing that these, 600 person conferences or even more may not be happening this year. So maybe something that would normally host 600 people may be limited to 300 for health and safety reasons. So if you want to be one of those people, then you will want to commit early to make sure that you get your space, or know that you will have access to it virtually, okay? Remember that a lot of these conferences, a lot of these workshops will be offering a virtual option for a little while. So and if you don't know for sure, then make sure and ask, okay? Here is a big no-no. Signing up for a conference and then not attending. That is a huge waste of money. It is a huge waste of your budget, your professional development budget, because a lot of times you can't get that back. Okay. And unless your employer is very generous and allowing you to swap things out, you may have taken a hit. So don't commit to something just because you're like, oh, that's super exciting and I'm going to spend that money right now. Don't do that, especially this early in the year. When you're at the end of the year and you still have a huge chunk of your professional development budget that you haven't spent, then that's the time of, if you see something, going ahead and spending it. I mean, I had several people come to me last year at the end of the year for coaching for that very reason. They realized they had some professional development funds that they had not utilized, and they were like, I need to sign up to do some coaching work with you because I've got to spend that money or I'm going to lose it. Okay, so those are valid reasons for doing it. However, do not sign up and not participate, whether it's for coaching or a workshop, whatever, because when you sign up and don't attend, you have taken a spot from someone, particularly in this year, right? Where time and space are very important. So be mindful of that as you move on. Then the other thing you want to do is after you've paid your deposit, you've paid your registration fee, whatever it may be, make sure you get online what those additional expenses may be, if it's something that's going to be in person versus if it's something that's virtual, making sure it's on your calendar to say, I'm going to be not available for regular work projects, for these, 1, 2, 3 days, or whatever it may be. You will want to also make sure that you've put everybody on notice. And here's the thing. A lot of times you put it on your business calendar, that would be your normal thing, right? You put it on your business calendar, your assistant, the group lead, the team lead, or whatever, they all know you're going. But remember, we're working virtually. So if you keep a calendar at home with your spouse, your partner, your family, you will want to put that on that family calendar as well. Something that's outside of your personal, calendar, your personal electronic calendar. I'm talking about something that's visible to the rest of your household. Because when the time comes, you still want them to treat you like you're at the office, because you are going to need to devote your time and energy to attending this conference, even if it is virtual. Okay, so you will want to treat it just like you would be in the office. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that, because the next point is crucial when it comes to developing those professional relationships. All right, so we've identified our conferences and workshops for the year, what we're thinking about doing. We have chosen a few to commit to, so we're ready to pay our registration fee, ready to put it on the calendar, to allot the time and the funds to support it. And now here's the biggie. Now we want to talk about, why are you going to this conference? What is your goal for attending it? Ultimately, because, hello, it's me, Patricia, we want to talk about what is your networking goal for attending this conference. You would be surprised at why and how so many people do not take this into consideration. Sure, they may think, oh, this will be great so that I can go see some people I haven't seen in a while, again, virtually, or maybe ultimately in person. And how we dealt with things in the past is kind of here or there, and like, oh, maybe I'll pop in for this and I'll come out. Here's the thing, like we've already said, this pandemic has turned everything on its head. And so we want to make sure that we are leveraging our opportunities to interact with others in a very strategic, thoughtful way. Because everybody's time is valuable. Everybody's time seems to be, has been shrunken by this. And so we want to make sure that you are making the commitments that you need to make in order to achieve the goals that you've set for yourself. So, what is your networking goal? Are you wanting to meet new people? Are you wanting to get additional exposure for some upcoming projects? Are you wanting to connect with certain experts in your field? Here's the thing. You want to make sure that you're considering not just what it is you will learn, but who you will learn from. Did you catch that? Because you can have a topic. You're like, oh yeah, that's interesting. But when it's a topic that's being taught or being presented by someone who's well respected in your field, someone that you've been really wanting to hear from, whatever, like that takes it to a different level. And it's like that excitement comes, you're like, oh wait, I cannot miss this particular one. Okay? So those are the things that you want to think about as you are preparing to attend these conferences and workshops. Okay? Here's the thing. Your networking goal is not the same as your learning goal. Let me say that again. Your networking goal is not the same as your learning goal. Your learning goal may be to learn specific things about your industry, about where things are going. But who you are connecting with may or may not align with that. How is that possible? Again, I just described. You can learn some things from some people that would be valuable. But it also could be that those persons are not people that are within your direct or close affiliation for you to be able to connect with directly. Now, I'm speaking theoretically here because you all know that if you follow Patricia Hayes and all of my networking work and videos and trainings, you know that I have always got a plan for how to get to that person that you have been working with, learning from, or whatever, right? But assuming you're starting from scratch, you do want to make sure that, because sometimes the person that you're interested in meeting and connecting with is not necessarily going to be teaching or presenting on the topic that you also need to learn about. It happens. So, for example, you're like, how is that possible? So, for example, I speak on, networking. I speak on career empowerment issues. I speak on leadership issues. I speak on a host of those things. But I also am still a practicing attorney. And so every once in a while, I'll get asked to speak on something that has to do with a legal matter. Not on any of the policy issues or not on one of the career development issues. But if I'm at a conference that you're interested in attending and you want to connect with me, even though I may be speaking on an employee legal matter, and that may not be generally within your wheelhouse, I would always recommend for you to try and figure out how to attend the session with me because I am within the goal of the group of people that you want to connect with, okay? Sometimes those are little sacrifices you make along the way. That's a little advanced tip. We'll talk more about that, but just laying that out there as options. So don't blow off a session just because it's not a session that you need to learn about, but it's being taught by someone that you are very interested in getting to learn more from or getting to know better, okay? Sometimes it's worth it to sacrifice that session so that you can be exposed to that person and then be able to use that as an in of, hey, I attended X conference and I attended your session and I was really, committed to making sure that I could connect with you, even though that's not an issue I normally follow. Do you see what I just did there? So those are very real things. So make sure you identify what your networking goal is. Meeting new people, getting more exposure, meeting up with experts in your field, specific experts or specific colleagues, and then seeing if that learning and that networking and connecting piece overlap so that you can benefit even more. Okay? All right. So there's that. Now, the next piece is you've got to plan your approach. This is when you start getting really down to the nitty gritty. And when I do my networking masterclass, we get started and the coaching, I get really, really detailed and specific about these things. So, but high level here, you want to plan your approach. What does that mean? Is that you're going to make sure that you take that conference information session agenda, and you're going to go through it and do a quick once over of identifying the sessions that you're interested in, either because of the topic or because of the people who are presenting. All right. Even if it's someone who's moderating. So let's say there's someone you're interested in connecting with, and they're not technically the presenter, but they're moderating the session. You want to make sure and connect that as well. That is just as valuable. If they are the ones at the front of the stage and going to be there, you can connect and be able to follow up with them as well. Okay? The other trick when you're trying to figure out what it is you're going to do, which sessions you're going to attend or not, and all of that, you want to make sure that you have backups. You want to make sure you have backups. It is not uncommon at all for a session that you were dying to attend to get canceled. Because a speaker gets sick, they can't travel, something comes up. It happens all the time. So you always want to have a backup. So if there are 5 choices during a specific time frame, maybe you prioritize them. And if you're not interested in 2 or 3 of them, don't mark them. Don't say, okay, if 1 and 2 aren't available, then I'll go to 3, 4, and 5. Don't go to 3, 4, or 5 if you have no interest in them, because you can utilize that time to connect differently and so that you can have a better use of your time. Okay. But make sure you have a first choice and a second choice so that if something happens to one, or let's say it doesn't look like it's as interesting, or they're not following a train of thought that you thought they were, then you know which session you can quickly switch over to. One of the benefits of working virtually is that you will be able to hopefully be able to switch rooms and be able to go to a different one. Okay. Other reason to have backups, especially when we're doing things virtually, is you never know, God forbid, if you lose connection. So that is a very real, thing that can happen. So make sure that you have multiple choices so that if you lose connection, if a session is not what you thought it was, or if it gets canceled, you have already thought out what it is you might want to do instead. You lose valuable time. Think about this. When you were in person at a conference and you didn't have it marked and you went to a session and it was not what you thought it was, and you're standing there like scrambling, trying to figure out what to do next, that is not what you want to do. That is not a good use of your time, and you will lose out on valuable connecting time. Because even if it's something you say, okay, this is not what I thought, then I've done this numerous times. I would go sit out in the lobby and people watch. Maybe I've brought some reading and I'm reading, or I'm looking ahead to some other things, but I'm also people watching, so that if I see someone that I know, I can call out to them and do that kind of impromptu thing. All right. Again, maybe not an option when we're doing this virtually, but technically, yes, you can, because you will be able to message people, email them. And so you can do that kind of reaching out just in a different way. All right. This is about maximizing your time and maximizing your networking opportunities. The other thing is, the point of planning your approach is to make sure that you get out of your comfort zone. All right. You want to be actively engaged, not just passively. So this will mean a couple of things. First of all, Don't just go with the stuff you know. If there's a topic that you really and truly have no clue about, but you know that you should be getting exposure to, then make sure to sign up for it. Because that will get you to a whole new group of people, not just the people who are presenting on the stage, but the people who are in the audience, who are attending as well. Okay, you will be able to connect with them, be able to leverage having attended the conference with them, and to be able to reach out to them afterwards in order to build that network in that new area, in that new topic range. The other thing is about being actively engaged and not just passive. So that may mean setting up a few key questions, okay? So that if you get an opportunity, you can ask a question of a presenter, of a moderator, okay? Of engaging in the chat. Do not just sit there like a bump on the log. You're attending this for a reason. You're spending money to attend this in a pandemic. So make it worth your while, okay? All right, so that's the fourth thing. You're planning your approach. Here's the last thing. Go for the gold. You have to make sure that you follow up. I don't know how many times I say this. It is still always the truth, which is people miss out on the most valuable piece of the puzzle when they don't follow up after a workshop, after a conference, retreat, whatever, okay? You want to make sure you follow up. How can you do it? Writing an email, sending a direct message, writing a note. You know, I still love my handwritten notes, right? Sometimes you have to give way and ask people for addresses now since they're working from home, or if their mail is getting forwarded to them. You want to, kind of touch bases on stuff like that. Connecting with them on your social media channels. LinkedIn. If you do not have a LinkedIn page or LinkedIn profile, you need to get one and get it set up immediately before you attend any conferences whatsoever. This is the easiest way to connect with other professionals. I'm in the middle of coaching some younger professionals who are just starting out. And that is one of the first things I did. I was like, what is your LinkedIn? First of all, do you have a LinkedIn page? What does it look like? Let's give it a quick once over, get it set up. We can come back and flesh it out, but you've got to have it because that's your window to the outside professional world. And it's the thing that you can utilize if you have nothing else, okay? Facebook still works, Instagram works, and now there's Clubhouse, right? All of these social media platforms are being utilized for professionals to connect up, and you need to be prepared to use them. You don't have to use them all, but pick one and stick with it. And if you want direction on which one to pick, I'm always going to say LinkedIn first. All right. Facebook can be much more social. The folks who are doing online businesses may be engaged more. If you're doing some learning, you may be engaged more. Instagram has its own little quirks, and Clubhouse is brand new. LinkedIn is golden for professionals in any aspect. Okay. So make sure that you have a profile, get it set up with an email attached. Okay, because that is how people will connect with you. They will connect with you in the messages, but they will also have the option of being able to connect with you directly in email. That's for you to use and for some other people to use, all right? So you're going to use it when you're reaching out to other people, and you want other people to be able to use it to reach out to you, okay? So make sure you do the follow-up. There is still those numbers. I think it's like less than 3 to 5% of people actually do the follow-up. You will be ahead of the crowd if you do. It doesn't have to be complicated. It just has to be done. All right? Okay, those are the nuggets for making sure that you are maximizing your networking opportunities when it comes to attending conferences and workshops this year. Look forward to engaging you more throughout the rest of the month as we start focusing in on some other particular little things, whether it's retreats, whether it's quarterly office meetings, leadership development opportunities, all of these different things that are key to making sure that you maximize your networking opportunities. If you want more strategies and tips and specifics on making sure that you do what you need to do, then I highly encourage you to sign up for the Authentic Networking Masterclass, the first version of which will be going live this Friday, March 12th. I believe that's right, March 12th. And so I encourage you to catch it, and so that you can be ready to dive straight into what it is that you need to do in order to maximize your networking opportunities in 2021. All right, take care. Patricia Hayes here. It's been my pleasure, and I'll catch you later. Bye-bye.